Every year, countless incidents happen during what seem like completely routine patrols and inspections. But some of those cases end up haunting police officers for the rest of their lives. Not because of dangerous criminals, but because what they saw did not resemble any human being. A deformed figure pulled up from a filthy sewer in the middle of a crowded city. Shadowy figures appearing inside empty buildings, then vanishing right in front of the camera. Houses where officers hear whispers, even though no one is inside. These are not urban legends, not stories told after a few drinks. They are real footage, real reports, and real testimony from police officers themselves.
All of it has been compiled, cross-checked, and analyzed by Mystery Files in this video. Stay until the end, because the further it goes, the more the footage captured by these cameras will keep you awake at night.
There are houses that police officers hesitate to return to after visiting just once. And this house in Gary, Indiana is one of them. It sounds like a low-budget horror movie, but what was reported comes from real case files, real statements, and real officers.
The story began when a family called police because they believed their home was no longer normal.
The mother claimed she personally witnessed her daughter being lifted off the ground, as if something invisible had pulled her upward. The son's case was even harder to explain. Inside a hospital, in front of medical staff, the boy crawled backward up a wall like something straight out of an exorcism movie. Not climbing, crawling, in a way that looked deeply unnatural. When officers arrived at the scene, they did not see demons or creatures, but they heard whispers coming from the basement. The words were unclear, but officers stated it did not sound like ordinary house noises. The case quickly spread nationwide and drew massive attention, to the point where a paranormal investigator decided to buy the house for about $35,000 to investigate it personally. And this is when things became even harder to explain. Cameras captured dark figures appearing in the windows. Horseflies swarmed the house, even during winter, something that almost never happens in that area.
The family eventually moved away, but they believed something evil was still inside. I do not know if that house was truly a gate to hell, but one thing is certain. No police officer ever wanted to work another night shift there.
This case was unexpectedly sent to us in early 2025, and the moment we watched the first frames, the entire editorial team froze for several seconds, just to make sure this was not a scene from a movie. According to the information attached to the video, the incident occurred on a cold morning in Brooklyn, New York. Local police were called after multiple residents reported prolonged screaming coming from a sewer in the middle of the street.
At first, officers assumed it was a homeless individual or someone under the influence hiding underground, something that happens fairly often in older neighborhoods.
Everything changed the moment the manhole cover was opened. A thin figure with dirty gray skin and matted hair suddenly emerged from below and began screaming violently. The footage shows at least 3 officers struggling at the same time to restrain the subject as it thrashed wildly, screamed with its mouth wide open, eyes bulging, and showed no response to verbal commands. What truly frightened the officers was not just the appearance, but the strength. Despite being so thin that ribs were clearly visible, the subject displayed unusually powerful resistance. The surrounding crowd was quickly pushed back and the area secured, while many bystanders stood frozen, shocked by how closely it resembled a real-life horror movie. After being restrained, the subject was transported by ambulance in an extremely agitated state. The official report did not release an identity, only stating that it was an individual who had been living long-term within the sewer system. What unsettled many people were statements from nearby residents. They said they had been hearing noises and moaning from that sewer for weeks before police arrived.
No one knows how long that person lived beneath the streets, and more importantly, no one can be sure this was the only one hiding below the city.
If you have ever driven a late-night route, you understand the strange silence after everyone has gotten off and you are left alone with an empty vehicle. And it was during one of those seemingly normal moments that a bus driver encountered something that changed the way he looked at onboard cameras forever. As he prepared to end his shift, he glanced at the security monitor out of habit. And that is when he saw a single passenger sitting alone on the upper deck. The problem was, this was the final stop. No one should have been on the bus.
At first, his reaction was completely reasonable. Maybe someone fell asleep. Maybe the camera malfunctioned.
I would think the same. He stopped the bus and went upstairs to check. But when he got there, no one was there. Empty seat, no sound, no backpack, no jacket, just a heavy feeling that is hard to describe. Like stepping into a room someone just left without opening the door. He knew for certain that he had clearly seen a figure on the monitor. But in reality, there was no sign that anyone had ever been there. Some people say it was just a camera glitch or a lighting artifact. But from that night on, the driver never felt truly alone on the bus again.
And honestly, if it were me, I would not stare at that camera for too long either. Because sometimes, the scariest thing is not seeing a ghost. It is not knowing whether it already got off, or if it is still sitting somewhere behind you.
Have you ever wondered how much you would believe a police report if officers claimed they saw a glowing cross flying through the sky? Back in 1967, a patrol car was traveling along the A3072 late at night when an officer noticed a strange object ahead. It was not airplane lights, not a helicopter. It was a glowing white cross silently hovering above the treetops at nearly eye level. What made it even stranger was that it was not stationary. It moved as if it were observing the patrol car below. According to later statements, when officers tried to accelerate and approach it, the object suddenly shot forward at an unimaginable speed. Calling for backup made no difference because no vehicle could keep up with whatever was flying ahead of them. When asked how fast they were driving, the answer was simple: very fast, and still not fast enough. After the story spread, multiple local residents came forward saying they had seen similar objects in the area. Not just one person, not just one night.
Despite multiple witnesses, all evidence related to the incident was later sealed by government agencies. No public report, no official explanation, no conclusion. What that object was has never been disclosed. And to this day, the biggest question remains. If it was not an aircraft and not a natural phenomenon, then what exactly flew above those officers that night?
At first, it sounds almost silly. What could two balloons possibly do inside a police station? But that is exactly why this footage is so unsettling. That night shift began like any other. Quiet station, no emergency calls, no suspects. An officer left two balloons in the hallway, maybe decorations, maybe just sat down without thinking.
No one paid attention, until the security camera captured the moment everything stopped being normal.
Just minutes later, the balloons began to move, not drifting because of air vents or rolling randomly. They floated very slowly, very smoothly, as if something was guiding them. Their path made viewers stop and look closely, because it was not random at all. They moved straight down the hallway, turned smoothly, kept distance from the walls, never collided, never spun out of control. It felt less like a physical phenomenon and more like something was playing with them. What unsettled officers the most was not the image itself, but the familiarity of the feeling. Some said they had previously heard faint sounds in the hallway during earlier shifts. Others connected it to older cases involving children who had once been associated with the area. This led to a theory that it could be the spirit of a child, trying to show its presence in the most harmless way possible.
It sounds gentle, but honestly, if I were working that shift, I would rather deal with a drunk suspect than watch two balloons move with intention. And this footage made many people realize that not every quiet night is a safe one.
There are places that seem completely normal during the day, but turn into something very different at night. And an empty airplane at 3 in the morning definitely belongs on that list. That night in Mexico City, an airport worker was following standard procedure after hearing strange noises coming from an aircraft that had already been taken out of service.
Doors slamming, footsteps, whispering. Not the kind of sounds you can ignore and talk yourself out of.
With only a flashlight, he stepped into the dark cabin and walked down the aisle between the seats. The silence was absolute, the kind where you can hear your own heartbeat. And then, from behind a shadowed corner, a dark figure leaned out. It did not rush forward. It did not vanish instantly. It just stood there, staring at him. The moment lasted only seconds, but it was long enough for the human body to react on pure instinct. Freeze, then run. The camera captured his panicked reaction as he turned and fled the aircraft, leaving the dark cabin behind. But the most terrifying part was that the camera never clearly recorded what was hiding inside. No identifiable image, no official explanation.
Some believe it was the spirit of someone who never left their final flight. Others believe there are things that simply do not belong here. No matter which theory you believe, one thing is certain. After that incident, no one wanted to be the first person to step into an empty airplane at midnight ever again.
Not every terrifying video involves ghosts or dark hallways. Sometimes, the most frightening encounters come from the sky. In 1979, Deputy Sheriff Val Johnson was patrolling a quiet road in Minnesota, a completely routine shift, until he noticed a strange light ahead.
At first, he assumed it was just the headlights of a disabled truck. A very reasonable thought. Until the light suddenly rushed straight toward him at an impossible speed.
There was no time to react. No clear explosion. Everything went dark. When he regained consciousness, the scene looked like a serious crash site. The patrol car was heavily damaged. The windshield shattered. The antenna bent backward. The headlights crushed inward. But the strangest part was Val Johnson himself. His eyes burned intensely, as if they had been exposed to a powerful source of radiation. Investigators stepped in, but found no reasonable explanation. No typical collision marks. No other vehicle recorded in the area. The incident quickly became one of the strangest cases in American law enforcement history. Decades passed with no final conclusion. No one officially confirmed it was a UFO, but no one could explain what it was either.
And that uncertainty is what makes the case truly disturbing. Because if a trained officer can be attacked in that way without knowing what did it, the question becomes unavoidable. How many things are out there that we have absolutely no control over?
If you think the desert at night is just sand, wind, and a sky full of stars, this footage will make you rethink that instantly. A nighttime safari trip with a group of friends began normally enough. The vehicle moved slowly through the vast darkness, headlights cutting through sand and dust. Then, out of the darkness itself, human-like figures began to appear. Not one, but many. Some pale white, others glowing with a faint purple hue that is hard to describe. And what terrified everyone was not their appearance, but the way they moved. Jerky, uneven, unlike any human movement.
The group's first instinct was to accelerate. In that moment, there was only one thought: get out as fast as possible. But the problem was, the figures did not fall behind. They moved closer to the vehicle, clung to the sides, even blocked its path, as if they did not want anyone to leave. That was the moment when logical explanations completely collapsed. These were not lost people, not a prank, and certainly not wild animals. Later, some believed they had encountered skinwalkers, entities often mentioned in desert folklore. Whether you believe that or not, one thing is clear. In that moment, no one was thinking about filming good footage or analyzing what they were seeing. All they could do was grip the steering wheel, stay calm, and hope the vehicle was fast enough to escape. I do not know about you, but if it were me, from that day on, I would only go on safari during daylight, and I would never look at the desert the same way again. But as terrifying as that was, it is nothing compared to what comes next. Subscribe and have the courage to keep watching. Have you ever stepped outside and felt like someone was watching you, even though everything around you was completely empty? The police officer in this video would definitely say yes. He was called in to check on a newly built house, the kind that still smells like fresh paint, with no real signs of anyone living there yet. The homeowner was away. Everything was silent. He checked every room, every corner. No one inside. No open windows. No signs of forced entry. But there was an uneasy feeling, like when you step out of a dark room and still feel someone standing right behind you. He heads back to his car, getting ready to leave. And at that exact moment, he sees a person standing near the house. Not a quick glimpse, not a reflection. A person, clearly standing there. A few seconds later, the figure disappears. No running, no hiding, just gone. Before he can even react, the figure appears again, standing near the same spot. His voice starts to shake. He speaks directly into the camera, saying he is not crazy, and he knows what he is seeing is real. The most disturbing part is not the figure itself, but the reaction of a police officer who is used to pressure and dangerous scenes. He panics. Not screaming, but the kind of fear that crawls down your spine. He says this is the most terrifying experience of his career, and the video ends there. No explanation, no answers, just one deeply uncomfortable question. If no one was inside the house, then who was standing out there? If you have ever worked a night shift in a large place like a shopping mall, you know how different it sounds at night. Every small noise echoes, and the security guard in this story heard something no one wants to hear after midnight. The sound of a little girl crying. The food court had been closed for a long time. No customers, no lights, no reason for a child to be there. But the crying continued, clear and steady. He went to check, calling out as he walked, and then he saw a small girl standing alone. The strange thing was that there was no immediate fear. She looked normal,